work with the Institute as part of the strategic innovation team and also as an instructor in the areas that are related to the gig economy in particular, and kind of finding purpose and meaning. So I welcome you today. And as we go along, as I said, there's going to be some activities I'm going to ask you to do. Some of you may in the past or at some other point been in a session with me. You will know that I come from a background of learning science. So when I say, hey, I'm going to ask you to scream out loud, Saturday morning, maybe people are sleeping at your house, you can't scream out loud. So what I want you to do is pretend to scream out loud, make your body move, act like you're going to scream, but you don't have to scream. But if I say, write this down, if I say, circle it with your pen, do that, because what I'm trying to do is help your brain and its neuroplasticity to become more adaptable to saying, how do I remember what I learned today? How do I use what I learned today? And so by using more of your physical attributes, it will help you as well. So just go with me unless I tell you to run out in the street, okay? Don't do that. If I get crazy and say that, don't do it, all right? All right, so let's get started. And let me pop up my screen. All right. Watch your beautiful faces, which I can't stand, so I have to get you back on there. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the fact that disruption has occurred, and many of you may be thinking that it's time to make some sort of change or to pivot. And so one of the things I want to start with this morning is to talk about how the impact of disruption and how it drives change and the good side and the bad side of that, right? And to kind of look at it in a holistic way. And then I want you to think about what your options are. You know, there are so many different ways for women to be engaged in our careers and in our life sense of purpose and meaning than we've ever had before because of changes in the workforce. And so we want to talk about those options. The core of what we're going to do today is then to say, how do you pivot? How do you make a good choice? How do you make sure you don't jump out of the frying pan and into the fire? So we're going to spend some time working on some foundational pieces around understanding yourself, understanding what the real barriers and gaps might be in getting you to where you want to go next, taking that first step, and then how you actually do take that first step. How do you take action? We hope that we end this session today where you think, I know a lot more about my options. I know a lot more about myself, and I have an actionable step I'm going to take at the end of this today. And again, many of you will be coming from different perspectives on why you need to do this. And so your steps will be very different from one another. So let's talk about how change occurs and how we are impacted to pivot. Often it is by choice, but sometimes it is by chance. And I might say it the other way. Often it feels like right now it's by chance and sometimes by choice. So what does that mean? So change by chance is really what's happening in our environment. It means that external factors outside of your control are creating a space that makes you feel like you've got to change or has made you move into a place of change. So this is what I call the tsunami of the external events that are happening in our lives right now. Is there anybody on the call who's not having an impact by this tsunami of change? We've got the pandemic, we've got the economic upheaval, we've got racial tensions and injustice and issues around that. We've got political unrest. In our nation, we have never seen a time that has this many factors all hitting us at the same time. And probably, you know, any one of them would cause us to, you know, feel like we had been hit by a wave. But when they're all hitting us at the same time, it feels like sometimes a tsunami. In addition, women are disproportionately being impacted by this. You know, by a show of hands, do like this, wave your hand. How many of you are in any caregiving kind of role at this point because of the pandemic? Yeah. Or how many of you are doing remote work for the very first time and having to adjust to balancing what goes on in your personal space with your work? Anybody doing that? You know? Yeah, great. Yeah. And so some of you may even be feeling like, hey, I feel so isolated. I'm not doing any caregiving. I have a girlfriend, and she said to me, thank goodness I got a small dog about a month before the pandemic hit, because she literally, because of health issues, hasn't been able to see hardly anybody. I think she's seen her son and me, who could, because I'm pretty quarantined because of elder care that I'm doing. And so she's saying, you know, I feel isolated, and that's causing me to think, what am I going to do on the other side of this? I want to be very intentional about how I'm putting my life together for the other side of the pandemic. I don't want to feel in this place again. I want to be in a different place. So I call all of those factors that are happening, they're the piece that is the change by chance. None of us created this for ourselves. We ended up here. And I think if you saw the report this week, 2.5 million women dropped out of the workforce. And I don't know if you know what that means. This doesn't mean that they got laid off or they left their job. It means I have decided not to get a job, not to return to work. 2.5 million, 1 in 4 women are contemplating exiting the workforce, which is one of the most dangerous things to all organizations' long-term success on a number of factors. So all of this is chance. This is chance. But some of us are experiencing change by choice. We're making a conscious choice. We're saying, you know, there are things that are happening, and while maybe all of this is going on and I'm weathering it okay, I'm not sure that on the other side of some of these issues, I want to be doing what I was doing. I was on a call with C-suite executive women this summer, and there were probably about 60 women on the call. And of that, probably close to 2/3 or a little less than 2/3 of those women were saying, I'm not going back to my job if it means I'm going to travel every single day again. I'm not going to go back to my job if it means that I'm going to be out every evening and every weekend. I have discovered that I actually still like my husband. You know, I mean, you know, I don't want to be 2 ships passing in the night anymore. You know, I want to make more of these activities with my children. For some, it is said, I want to have a different kind of balance in my life or a different kind of mixture of activities. For others, it's a values proposition. You know, after 9/11, we had a huge number of people who moved into the military, became first responders, moved into healthcare. And while we are going to see an exodus from healthcare workers who have lived through such tragic frontline experiences, we're going to see a whole nother group of people move in to say, you know what, this fits who I want to be in the world. And so we're going to see people transitioning because they want to be part of future solutions. We're also going to see people transitioning because their organization or their company didn't do the right things. And they say, that doesn't match my values. I want out of that. I want to do something different. So what can I do during this period to prepare for the future? So chance or choice, it can happen both ways. And so one of the things we want to ask you today is what brought you here to this conversation. It'll help us as we talk. And so Sarah's going to put up a poll, and we'll ask you really quickly to pick the one that's most related to your reason to be here today. Sarah, I'm only seeing the questions on my screen, but not the answers yet. Is that right? Okay.
That's right, Denise.
I do this with Sarah every week, you guys, and I ask her the same question every time. I just want to say that.
So we only have about 66% of you voting. If the rest of you would love to, can chime in, we'd love to have 100% participation if possible. All right, we're about 75%, so I'll publish the results right now.
Okay. So, okay, so about 1/3 of you are unemployed because you've either been laid off or left the workforce. That's good for me to know. 11% want to move their career forward, be promoted, move into the next phase. Looks like half of you are thinking, I want to change my career. I want to enter a new field. Something's pushing you in that direction. Anybody have any comments about this that you'd like to share so that I can really make sure we're addressing some of your needs today? Anything that's really driving you on any of this, beyond this?
I am in the event business, and I'm concerned because it's disappeared in the last year. So
Yeah.
that is I'm concerned that I know it'll come back, but I don't think it'll come back quickly or as strong as it was. I'm specifically in the corporate event business. And I think corporations have learned that they don't need to get together. They can do this.
Yeah, I think, Susan, I think that's right. And so what you're doing is thinking about how do I build some either recession-proof or emergency-proof other career plan that has a little more security around it, a little more continuity to it. Great, thank you for sharing that. Anybody else want to share?
Yeah, with me, it's staying relevant.
Staying relevant, yes. You know, one of the great things is that I was looking at is, you know, the people who always land on their feet when this kind of change occurs are people who are usually already engaged in learning the next thing that they might need to know to stay relevant. How do they stay critical to their employer? How do they stay critical to their industry? By being one step ahead. So those people who are lifelong learners and take that seriously, those are the people who tend to pivot the easiest. They land on their feet more often as a result. Anybody else?
Good morning, ladies. This is Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
I am in the aerospace company world, and we've taken a dramatic hit government-wise and domestic, and it's kind of scary. We're not really sure where we're going to be tomorrow or next year or what's going to happen. So looking hopefully maybe to change direction a little bit.
Excellent.
So that's why I'm here.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate all of you sharing. If anybody else decides you want to share at some other point, please jump in. But, you know, again, Kathy, you're doing kind of one of those things like, hey, everybody look up. This isn't looking too good. And when's it going to get better? And before something happens to me, I want to make sure I get in the driver's seat, right?
Right. And I'm at the age where, you know, there's a lot of people being 60 and everyone else is 30. It seems like it's kind of hard to go back into the workforce.
Exactly.
Absolutely, Kathy. And, you know, this gig economy that we're going to talk a little bit about is fantastic for those of us who are more mature. Look at my beautiful hair. And I always refer to my own hair as beautiful. I just want you all to know that. That's a whole separate workshop that you can go to.
I agree.
But
I agree.
but seriously, the idea that we can control our future and our wisdom is valuable in the new gig economy is a great new opportunity for us, right? So that ageism that women have faced in employment, gig can be a positive piece for us. So, all right, so let's look and see, let's think about this. So you guys already started doing something that's really important here. You've started reframing, right? Reframing. This, you know, here's one of the things I remind people is that 70% of people do not like their jobs. This has been true for about 15, 20 years. 70% of people have a job that they go to, that they do, that they don't really like, or they detest it. In fact, it's so bad that the highest rate of both suicide and heart attack is on Sunday night and Monday morning in our nation.
Wow.
Sunday night and Monday morning, we have more suicide attempts and more heart attacks. Directly related, the researchers say, to the stress people feel and anxiety about going to work on Monday morning. Isn't that sad?
That's
So
very
isn't that crazy? And I feel like that sometimes if we reframe the situation, we can say to ourselves, hey, you know what? Doesn't matter how I got here. Now I'm going to choose. I'm going to choose. How many of you been to some panel and heard people talking about their career paths and how they got there? And they said, well, you know, it's just happenstance. Or I was in the right place at the right time or the wrong place at the right time. I don't know, but I got picked up. I kind of got on this trajectory. I started working along and life was happening and, you know, or I needed to go to work and make more money. I had kids, whatever it was. They didn't choose. They happened into their job. You know what I'm trying to say? And so now we get to choose. we actually can control some of what's happening to us into the future. And so glad you all have made the decision to be here and to be part of trying to reframe. So what are our options? I'm going to spend just a few minutes on this part because you probably know a little bit about this, but you all probably know about traditional work. Most of us have probably worked for an organization and or a company, or maybe we currently are. And we have always believed, since people left the farm in the Industrial Revolution and went to work, we have always felt that there is more security in traditional work. That has been something we believed really up until 2008. We believed that if we went to work, did a good job, somebody would tell us what their expectations were, we would execute on those expectations, and as a result, we would get a paycheck, we'd probably get health insurance, we would get a retirement plan, maybe we get some other kinds of professional development on our perks, and the problems belonged to the company or the organization, right? We did a job, and it was our career. We may have been deeply invested, but we did it and we felt very secure about it, right? Then in 2008, what happened? What happened in 2008?
There you go.
The housing market, the tech
Recession.
field, all of that happened.
That's right, Selena. We had a crisis. It crashed on us. We had the biggest recession up till this one that we're currently in the history since the Great Depression. And really loyal people and companies who'd done everything right. It was just real easy for people to take their box and move it to the curb. And a whole bunch of people said, wait a minute, I thought this was secure. I did my part. This is what's happening to me. So one of the other things that happened in 2008 is that more technology advances and the real commitment of investor capital began to push people into entrepreneurship, saying, I'm not going back to the company, I'm gonna create my own company. I'm gonna move in that direction. And so we saw the onset of really expanded entrepreneurship. It became a buzzword. It was in all of our schools. We talked about it. We really began to drive entrepreneurship after the Great Recession of 08. And what's interesting about entrepreneurship is that women have done exceedingly well. We have created since 08 5 times more jobs, more companies rather, than men. 5 times more companies than men. And women of color have created 8 out of 10 of those. And what we know is that women entrepreneurs are more successful than their male counterparts. Does anyone have any idea why that is?
No.
So here's why. One, women are used to having to juggle multiple balls at one time historically. We have always lived a life with work demands, home demands, other demands in our communities, and balanced and juggled. And if you've ever know anybody who started a new company, you are the finance person, the salesperson, the logistics person, and it's your job to clean the toilets, right?
Yep.
So when you start out, you got to wear multiple hats. Sometimes men who transition from corporate world into entrepreneurship, they're not used to having done 6 or 7 things simultaneously. And so they're not as successful at it. But women, we've been doing it, so we are good at it. The second thing is women are great collaborators. They believe that this is one of the real reasons that we succeed. We collaborate. We are used to having to get with other women to talk about how to get things done, move things forward. We don't always get to go in a straight line historically. And so we know how to zig and zag to get to where we need to go. And in that collaboration, we're also willing to ask each other for help and to network, to support one another. I try to buy my services from other women-owned businesses in my entrepreneurial companies and to support other women. I hope that they're doing the same with me. We're trying to do those things because women are good at helping women in these ways. And so entrepreneurship for women has been hugely successful. The downside has historically been that there was no access to capital. We couldn't get as much money to start as men, but today, the funds are there. The money is there. There's tons of money to start your own business. Women don't know how to access that money. So more education is needed to help women know how do you get the resources to drive your business, and to understand when you can go and ask. Women will wait too long because we want to be perfect before we ask. Men will ask when they have an idea. We will ask after we've really fleshed that thing out, moved down the road, tested it. And so teaching women to ask sooner and to know where the sources are is part of that. So entrepreneurship gives us the ability to control what happens. We are controlling our destiny. It is not more secure than traditional work. It is, more small businesses fail than succeed. However, more women succeed in that whole space. And so it's a great space. And at least when you fail and or you succeed, I can say this from my own experience, I can look to my own self often to say, yeah, that's on me, and I feel more in charge. I feel more in control. The third area is gig employment. Now, this is, we're going to spend more time on this because gig employment can happen in relationship to those other two. Gig employment is when you identify that you have a skill and or a service that you could offer and or product that you can offer, but primarily a skill and or service that other people need. And gig has exploded. Gig is going to be 60% of all work by 2027. All workers are going to be independent contractors who work for themselves and put together what we call the portfolio of work. So in my work, I happen to have 2 companies where people work for me, but I also am an instructor. I'm also an executive coach. I'm also an entertainer. I perform one-woman shows. If you go and Google me, you'll see. And but I have several different pieces of kinds of things that I can do to provide services to others. And as a result, I call that my portfolio of work. And what that does is it does give me much more job security, income security, career security. When COVID hit, in one of my companies, one of my investors said, we're going to close it today, fire everybody. That's what he said.
Oh.
We're going to close it today, fire everybody. And what my other company, 100% of my corporate clients in my other company canceled their contracts within 2 weeks of us closing. So potentially over a 2-week period, I would have lost 100% of my income. But because I have a portfolio life, I was able to say, well, I am able to pivot and I can work in this space in consulting, this space in workforce development. And by the way, people need what's in the first company a whole lot, so we're not going to close it. So here's how we're going to change that. We're going to pivot inside the company to address the current workforce issue. So we were able to pivot and still move forward and be safe, if you will, because we had more ways in which we could draw income. And so by diversifying your portfolio in gig, you have more opportunity. It also gives you flexibility. When do you want to work? How do you want to work? And starting a gig doesn't mean you have to jump out of your full-time job to start. So you can still have a job and begin to experiment with gig to see if you want to enter into the gig environment. So gig is so popular now that employers are trying to figure out how they're going to compete for the best and the brightest service providers out there. So, this is going to be the trend. Personal expertise that you promote for others. The last box I always like to give is something that I call retirement and service, because I don't think we think about this. And, we talked a little bit about some of us who are at this part of our career where maybe we want to have a different kind of job, but maybe it can be different. Maybe we don't have to earn as much. Maybe we've earned a lot. We're looking for something to make a lasting legacy. Maybe we're saying, I want to have something that I do part-time when I retire. So this is a good time for me to switch because I want to keep my mind sharp. I want to be contributing. So there's another piece of having a career that can be paid or not paid or paid differently that is also there for women at this time, so that pivoting isn't into an abyss, but it's a planned movement. Any questions about this part? This is just a quick overview. Okay. All right, hearing none, I'm gonna keep going. So today, what I want to do for our time together is I want us to talk about how do you make that good pivot into one of these 4 boxes, whichever one's right for you? And here's the great thing. You don't necessarily have to choose just one of them. You can be doing more than one of them at a time. You can be in traditional work and have a gig. You can be an entrepreneur like me and also have a gig. You can just be gig like some of my friends. And so you can pick and choose what you want. But the key is to build a life of purpose so that you are a part of the 30%, not of the 70%, right? We don't want people feeling like on Sunday night, I hate getting up tomorrow morning. In fact, what we want is for people to wake up in the morning, and when their feet hit the floor, that they have joy, because today they know they're going to be purposeful and their work will be meaningful. So how do you get there? 1, you got to identify the purpose. 2, you got to know your skills. You got to really identify what skills you have. And then 3, you got to know who needs those skills. You know, you could have all kinds of skills that nobody needs, right? So we got to have skills that people need. 4th, we got to identify our barriers and our gaps to getting us to where we want to be and bringing those skills and our services to the marketplace. We have to have a plan. Number 5, we have to have a plan. The people who have a plan are more likely to succeed than those who don't. We have to take action. I have friends who've been talking about their plan for 20 years. Do anybody of you have that? How many of you have even had a plan for 20 years? I can honestly confess, with all that I got going on, the thing that I most want to be doing, I've been talking about since I was 23. I'm 58 years old. So since 23, I've been talking about it, ladies. There's a barrier. I got to go back up there. There's a barrier up there that's keeping me from doing that last thing that really I want to be doing. And so I have to be able to figure it out, get my plan, and then I've got to act on it. I just got to do it, right? And I have to believe I can, as you have to believe you can. So we're going to walk through this and see if we can move ourselves down this continuum on this call to see if we can get started, not just talking about it. So let's talk about purpose. How does purpose come? So purpose is the sweet spot, the star in the middle is when what you love intersects with what the world needs and is willing to pay for, and you're good at it. So when what you love intersects with what the world needs, what can be paid for, and somebody's willing to pay for it, and you're good at it. Now, I might love dancing, but I'm not good at it, and nobody needs me to do it, right? I might be phenomenal at storytelling, and I love it, and maybe people need it, but nobody's going to pay me for it, right? Or maybe they are. But it's these 4 segments, and that's where the purpose, when those things kind of all align, I love something, people need it, they're willing to pay me for it, and I am really good at it. That's when we end up finding our sweet spot of purpose. You know, we talked about the 70%, and I said, I want you to be able to be in the 30%. Some research was done by a group, and this guy named Adam Lipsig. Adam did this work after he went to a Yale class reunion, and he looked at the people who were happy and the people who weren't happy, and he began to research who was happy and why. And what he found was the people who were truly happy were the people that they knew who they are and what their values were. They had a real sense of self, right? They were really clear about their strengths and what they would do best. They had not misled themselves. They weren't pretending. They really knew their strengths, and they really knew what they were the very best at doing. They knew who needed them. They could talk about who needs them and needs what they do. And they knew what those people wanted from them. So it's one thing to say, 3rd graders need me, and they need the fact that I'm a good storytelling person. But what specifically do they need from your stories? What's going to make your stories something more right on spot for those 3rd graders? So what do they need in specific? from you. And they know that. They knew that about the people who needed them. And they knew what impact they had on their lives. They knew what impact they had on those people's lives. So these people who, you could have all these people who had all had success. If you had 100 of them, 70 of those people would say, I hate my job, I hate my life, I hate my work, I'm not fulfilled, I'm dissatisfied, I'm always looking for something else. 30% were like, I'm in the zone. I love my work, I'm happy, it gives me what I need, and I feel fulfilled. And what they found was that the reason these people felt fulfilled was they knew themselves. They knew what they knew themselves, and they knew who needed them and their skills, and they knew what impact they had. So think about that for a minute, because we're going to work on this in this call today. So our first activity in knowing yourself is to know your values. One of the first things we need to do is, I think what happens to us is, wow, change is happening. I need to change. What am I going to do next? Where am I going to go? In my executive coaching practice, I can't tell you how many people have said, I just need to get out of this job. And I say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Do not jump, plan, and start with yourself. Start with yourself. Let's look at this. What do you value? So ladies, pencil and paper. I want you to tell yourself, I want you to write down what your 3 core values are, the thing that you value most. What would you say? I gave you a list here. You don't have to choose from the list, but 3 values. What are your core values? Write those down. I'm going to give you a few minutes to look at that list. Oh, sorry. You got them? So now that you have your 3 values down, I want you to ask yourself this question. How have you demonstrated or lived those values in the last week? See, values are our deeply held beliefs that drive our actions and our behaviors. They are our guiding principles. They guide how we think, how we work, the choices we make. So I want you to think a minute about those 3 values you wrote down. And I want you to write down next to them, how did I live this value this last week? How did I live it? Where did it show up? Take a minute and do that. So someone share with me. Tell me one of your values and how you lived it for us. Just give me one. Anybody?
I'm Amy Jo, and
Hi, Joe. Thank you.
everyone. Hello, hello.
Amy Joe, I know you.
You do know me, yes.
I love to see people in my class. There you go. Hi. Go ahead.
Hi. One of the values that I wrote down was working in a team, or the teamwork value. And this past week, working with the team that I currently work with, we needed to do a little pivoting because of stress levels and pandemic stress levels, et cetera. So I was hopefully able to take some things off of my team's plate so that their stress levels could be minimized so they could do the work they needed to do and not be consumed with other expectations that may or may not have been out of their control. So hopefully I lived that by making that decision.
Fantastic. That's a great example. Great example. How about someone else? Anybody else? Let's get another example. You're like, Denise, I'm looking at my values list and I didn't do it. I can't come up with an example. Now, let me say something, ladies. One of the things, I have been doing values work for 30 years, and with people of all ages, from 18-year-olds to senior executives. And one of the things we sometimes do when we think about our values is we think about what we should do, what we aspire to do, versus what it is we really do. And the thing about values is they're personal. They're not right ones and wrong ones. They're right ones for you and wrong ones for you. So, you know, if you said, I value wellness, but you can't look in the last week at things you did to really choose wellness for yourself, or if you said, I value family, but you really can't find those things. You know, one of the things that is at my deepest values, I value being able to positively impact the world for people to have better lives. That is something for all of my life I've been working on. And what I know for sure is that I value doing that over virtually everything else. And for years and years and years, I sacrificed my own wellness to do that because it was down here. I only began to put wellness as a part of my value proposition when I took on a huge project around poverty in Appalachia that I knew would be maybe the most stressful, hardest, biggest challenge I'd ever worked on. And I knew that if I didn't value my own wellness, that I might run out of gas before I had done the work I wanted to do. So our values can change, but the key is to be in tune with yourself. My family would tell you that they're number 4. Because if I have a chance today to act on something that's going to make that impact or get home in time for dinner, I will go do the thing, right? And so by being honest and clear, you don't disappoint people as much, you know? So I want you to think about your values. I want you to come back and I want you to spend some time with this because when our values are aligned with our work, we are mentally and physically happier and healthier. When our values are aligned with our work, we are mentally and physically happier and healthier. So I want you to think about that and think, what are my core values? And if you're having trouble with them, watch your behavior. When you have big decisions to make during the week, think, what did I think about before making that big decision? That'll help. Any other comments? Okay. Now remember that 30%. Remember that 30%. That 30% was able to answer some questions. And so the next thing I want you to do is to realize that your values wrap around and run through your purpose. So how do you find your purpose? So what we know is literally hundreds of thousands of books, thousands of podcasts, tons of YouTubes are out there to try to help people find their passion, find their purpose, etc. And one of the things that we know is that people, especially in the US, spend an inordinate amount of time looking inward to figure out who they are and what they're going to be, not always enough looking with inward and outward. In addition, sometimes we overcomplicate trying to figure out what our purpose can be all about. So one of the things I want to do for this time we're together today is I'm going to take you through these questions and we're going to play a little game with them. And then we're going to go a little deeper and then we're going to go a little deeper so that at the end of this call and this time together, that you have a starting place of exploration. All right. Anybody, so that everybody can leave this and feel like they have a starting place for exploration. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you these 6 questions. This is that part where I want you to yell out loud. And so for those of you who joined the call late, I said, unless I ask you to run into the street, just do the things I say to do the way I say to do them. Now, I also said, if you're in your home and people are sleeping or you're somewhere where you can't scream, I want you to pretend you're yelling out and use the physical movement. So I'm going to ask the questions and without thinking too much, I just want you to yell it out. Okay, ready? Who are you? No one knows who they are?
I think
I
Okay,
need more coffee.
Wait, you ready? Yeah, this is also going to be your aerobic activity to get the day started. Ready? So everybody, like, check your driver's license. Get your name down. That's all I'm looking for here is your name. You ready?
Okay.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Who are you?
Selena.
Free spirit.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. What do you do? What do you do? Something that you can do.
Everything.
Educate children.
Good. Let's do it one more time. What do you do?
Everything.
Educate
Planner.
children.
Okay. Who needs what you do? Nobody.
Students,
Organization.
Special needs community.
All right. Who
That's it.
needs what you do? What do they want and or need specifically from you?
Accuracy.
Time.
Consistency.
Good.
Time.
And how does what you do positively impact them? How does what you do positively impact them? Are they happier? Are they richer? Are they safer?
Healthier. They have more knowledge.
Yeah.
More
Okay.
peace of mind.
All right. All right. So ladies, this is just this little starting exercise. And what we're going to do now is we're going to walk through these and we're going to write them out a little bit more. So I want you to think about this. Who are you? This is part of your values. It's who you are. It's the sense of that. If I'm my total self, my best self, I'm probably doing these things, right? I am Denise Reading and I am doing X, right? So who am I? Starting with thinking more about, this is what I value. This is who I am. This is how I want to be show up. This is how I want people to know me, right? Second question, the harder question, but not that hard. What do you do? So I want you to answer this question by answering another question. What are you good enough at that you feel fully confident you could teach another person? Write this down. Anything that you're really good at, you're so good you could teach someone else to do it. You're like awesome at this. Painting fences, listening, teaching people how to cook, biscuits only. I made a birthday cake yesterday. It took me 4 hours. I watched a YouTube video to see how you can make a piping bag out of a Ziploc bag. That woman is better on that YouTube at how to make piping bags out of Ziploc bags. She's awesome. I can't teach that, but she can, and she can make money at it. So what are you good at? So much that you could teach another person. And maybe it's more than one thing. Write them down. Write them down now. Take a minute. Write down anything you're good at. My aunt, who's 83, is the best ironer in America. I said, Aunt Donna, you should have had a service for that. Write that down. Once you've written some of those things down, I want you to, think to yourself, which one do I love to do the most? Kind of put them in order. Which one do I love first, second, third? And then I want you to think out beside them, who needs it? Who wants to learn how to make a piping bag out of a Ziploc or cake icing? Who needs it? A woman who hasn't made a cake in 15 years, right? Someone who can't afford piping bags. Chefs starting out. So who needs you? Who needs what you can do? As we were going through in every one of my sessions, people will say everyone. So everyone is not a marketing plan.
Right.
A marketing plan is who needs it first. I've got some friends, they're going to launch this new app for longevity. And the people they're calling on first is concierge doctors. Concierge doctors serve private, generally wealthy consumers without being required to have insurance to pay their medical bills. So the concierge doctors want to offer perks to their people first and can afford it. They didn't say we're going to get the app to everybody in year one. That's their goal. But they said concierge doctors, because concierge doctors need to differentiate. Their customers are usually more mature people who have built wealth. You get it? So who needs it? Write that down. So this next one's a little bit tricky because it sounds like it's repetitive, but what do they want and or need from you? What do they want and or need from you? So I mentioned that I'm an executive coach, and what people want, the people who choose to hire me want straight talk. They want truth. And then they want assurance. So you don't come in, you don't pay me to be your coach if you just want to feel good about yourself, if you want to be coddled, if you want me to say everybody else is bad and you're the good one. You hire me when you say, I want to change my life. And if I have to take a good hard look at myself to do that, then that's what I want to do. I'm going to listen. I want to hear the truth. And then I want someone to, help me feel that I can overcome, help me find that, to assure me. That's what differentiates my practice from many of my friends, is that sometimes it's a little bit brutally true, but it's done with a lot of assurance. So not everybody wants what I offer. So I have to be clear who wants what I offer, how I offer it. Okay. And then how does what you do positively impact people? How does it positively impact? What's the impact? Does it give them security, peace of mind? Does it help them reach their career aspirations? Does it help them have a more beauty, inward and outward? Does it give them a solid foundation because you're a brick mason? To know that they live in a stable and beautiful home? So what positive impact do you have? Got it? All right. Is there anyone who's brave enough to tell me theirs? The more you say it out loud, ladies, the closer you get to getting it right, by the way. Come on, lean into me. Tell me something. You want to yell it out?
Okay, well, I'll say mine.
Come on, Sabrina, thank you.
I'm really good at Excel, and I think that I could help employees with little to no college education to understand and be able to be super users of Excel and actually stand apart.
Excellent. And what do they need specifically from you? You mentioned it there, I think, because of who you're going to serve. You said something with very little education. What do they need from you that's different in how they might learn?
That's a good question. Okay, I misunderstood that question when you asked it.
So I'm on.
I just had they would reach their career aspirations, but yeah.
They would reach their career aspirations, and maybe what they need from you is that you have the ability to teach in a simplified way that makes learning easier. They need you to simplify it. They don't have other education or don't have other background in learning that. So something about who you said you were going to serve means that you would serve them differently, right?
Yeah.
And so you have that gift to make it understandable for people who don't have the background that others might not think would learn it. right?
Okay, that's where I put, okay, I had, I would show up, sorry, I typed it, so I'm looking on another screen.
That's all right.
I would show up with a plan that is easy for them to walk through to move their life to a different trajectory.
Fantastic. Okay. So look what she did there. And by the way, Excel is one of the 3 core skills that is required by every industry today if you want to be in a high demand job. We want you to be able to do all the tools of Microsoft Office. That's still what business and industry wants. So there's a market out there for you. So I'm glad that you shared it today. So think about that. Now I want you to read that last sentence about the positive statement, the last one you read. Read that out loud to me one more time.
For me to show up with a plan that's easy to understand so that they're able to move their life to a different trajectory.
So if I went to a cocktail party and I met Selena and I said, what do you do? I help people move their life to a different trajectory. Isn't that an interesting thing for her to say? Then what would someone say to her? How do you do that?
How do you do that? Okay.
And so Selena, how do you do it? You teach Excel.
Teach Excel.
Right?
To people that have little to no college education.
In a way that
is easy for them to understand in a simplified manner. I actually wrote down what you said, ability to teach in a simplified way.
So listen, ladies, look at her. She goes to a party now and people say, what do you do? I help people move their lives in a different trajectory. Isn't that interesting? What if you went to a cocktail party and somebody said, I help children find their dreams. What do? I help children find their dreams because I write children's books that help them fall asleep and have good dreams. I help men and women look and feel their best. I design custom clothing for men and women, professionals who need to look and feel their best. I help people get their greatest work into the world because I train entrepreneurs on how to build plans and take decisive action and get their work into the world. That last sentence is your elevator hook.
Okay.
It's your hook. And when you start talking about the vision and the outcome and the purpose, the other things up above start falling into place a little bit better, right? So thank you, Selena, for being brave enough to put it forward, because when you get a clear sense of your purpose and you can talk about your gifts in a way that is around outcomes, there's greater chance that you can actually achieve it, because once you begin to speak it into being, it's more likely that you can do it. I want you to notice, ladies, that of these things about finding purpose, number 1 and 2 are about you. Number 3, 4, and 5 are about others. 1 and 2 look inward. 3, 4, and 5 look outward. The happiest people, the most purposeful people, regardless if you're an accountant, if you've run the local bowling alley, if you are a food service worker, the happiest people in their work are the people who have found 1 and 2, and they deliver it with an outward focus on 3, 4, and 5. Think about that for a minute. So this exercise that we just did, it's a starting point that over the next days and weeks, but not months and years, listen to me, over the next days and weeks, not months and years, if you spend some time looking at this and practicing and talking to other people about it, starting with that bottom thing. Anytime someone asks you what you do, you know, when people say, Denise, what do you do? Depending on what thing I've been working on that day in my gig, but I might say, I am part of the catalyst for ending poverty. Right? And then I go back and talk about my work in Appalachia and the services we provide, because it's a different way of engaging people. It's also a way of marketing yourself. So that over the next days and weeks, not months and years, I want you to begin to work this little formula. And I think if you do, you're going to find your direction. You're going to find your purpose. You're going to find your happy place. And tell others so they can give you feedback. Because Selena had just kept that to herself. She might have missed She might have missed something. She might have also not known that I work in a space that is really working to try to get people to learn Excel. So now we've networked, Selena, right? Okay. Questions, ladies, on this part, thoughts about it before I move us on. Are you like, could it really be this simple? I don't know, Denise. Come on, challenge me.
So I want to just chime in and say the questions are so relevant because for me, I'm not sure about other women, but for me, I've been such the caregiver like my entire life, even as the older of four, that now I'm going to say, like, this is probably the first time in my life, and I'm 57, that I've actually had a question put to me to say, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of, I don't want to say intimidating, but it's like, oh my God, I get to ask myself a question and look in the mirror and face me. And this is something that I am absolutely going to do, because what I want to say, who are you? I have compassion for people. I am a caregiver, and just so happened my youngest son has autism. And what I found myself doing even before my son was born is kind of being this advocate for people with disabilities, because with autism in particular is referred to as the invisible disability. So I find myself in situations, because you can't always see it. You don't see the wheelchair, you don't see the Down syndrome, you don't see the deformity, you don't see the helmet. There's some behaviors you just do not see. And I have found myself my entire life, actually, even as a kid, thanks to my mom, just kind of jumping in and trying to help people who don't directly deal with people with disabilities kind of understand you don't have to be afraid of this person. It's not a disease, it's not a virus, you won't catch it. So the thing that I've found myself doing is getting involved with special needs groups, parents who have kids with disabilities, and the focus has always been on being that caregiver. And now these questions are pointing back to me. How do I become a caregiver for myself and render what I care, what I like to do, potentially as a service to people who need that reprieve or that respite, just to help a parent go to the store, just be at Walmart and just buy a bag of oranges without their kid running all over the place, just saying, hey, can I help you? I'll get the oranges for you. Things like that. It's not so, maybe not so tangible, but these questions has really opened up a whole different thought process for me. And thank you so much for having this session.
Well, Teresa, I'm so, I think that was you speaking, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, I'm glad that you said this. And I'm also glad you said your age, because I have been teaching since the fall a course at Ursuline called Designing Your Career to Fit Your Life. And one of the things we do is this deep dive. And in every one of my class, I've had some women who are 55 and older who are saying, is it too late for me? Or I've always cared for others, or this is my first time to think about this. As women, we often don't get a chance to step back and look. And remember, I said by chance or by choice, what is your life? Most of us have lived our lives by chance, not by choice. But
Right.
our chance may have developed these skills and these passions that we didn't even know someone else needed. And when you say, who are you? That's why I said, you know, those first two, they're about you. Once you know that, you can then say, okay, I'm gonna look out and see who needs that. And you've identified a number of possibilities today. In your conversation just now, as a person who advises people on these things, you just named a half dozen different ways you could take what you're good at, and clearly, as you spoke, have passion for, do an opportunity to be a way of making a living if that's what you wanted to do. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else before I move on? So look, ladies, we've made it through 3 of our tasks, right? We've identified at least a starting point for our purpose. We've identified at least a starting point of our skills and who needs those skills. When you've done 1, 2, 3, you're on the pathway to the 6-step process right here. And before this call is over, we're going to touch each one of these. So let's go on and identify our barriers and our gaps. So I want you to think about, what are the barriers that will block your progress? So one of the things that happens is we live in the world of myths. We're not very realistic sometimes about what might stop us. And so, you know, there are some real barriers that we have, and then there are some perceived barriers that we have. So if you were to write down a minute some of the real barriers that might get in the way of you actually exploring and making this next step. What might those be? Take a minute and write down some of your real barriers. What are some of those real barriers that could get in the way? Recently, a woman that I was working with was going to start an educational program. And the real barrier for her was that she works in an environment where she cannot take a 2-hour lunch break. And that's when her class was offered online. So that's a real barrier if she needs to maintain the job that she currently has. It's not an insurmountable barrier. It's a barrier that must be addressed. A real barrier might be that for the next 3 years, I have some significant elder care responsibilities that will not allow me to have the mobility that I need to have to do this thing. So how can I overcome that and/or adjust how I'm going to do it if travel is suddenly not part of my world? I'm making a choice. Things are happening to me. There's a barrier and I'm making a plan to overcome that barrier. So what are those barriers? Because when you put them down, you begin to see how you can overcome them. And then what are your perceived barriers? So perceived barriers are things you think are barriers that probably are really just in your mindset, right? They're in your mindset. So I love to tell this story about being 6 years old and going to Andrea Schultz's birthday party. So I was 6 and I was going to go to Andrea Schultz, and that's her name, Andrea Schultz. I always use the real names of the people in my life. So be careful if you get to know me, because I might be telling the story. So I went to Andrea Schultz's birthday party. I'm 6 years old. And in the car on the way to the birthday party, we were all singing. We were in one of those big old station wagons. We were all piled in the back because I'm old enough. We didn't wear seatbelts. So we're all hanging around in there. And her birthday was in December. And so we were singing Christmas carols. And so we were taking turns singing a line. So you would sing Jingle Bell, Jingle Bell. And the next girl would sing Jingle All the Way. And the next girl would say, oh, what fun. And so when you went around, somebody pointed at you and you just sang your line. So singing, singing, singing. Denise's turn. I sang, all the little girls start laughing, 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 laughing. And I think, why are they laughing at me? I'm devastated. I mean, I'm absolutely devastated. They continue on, everybody sings, it seems like they didn't laugh at anybody else. Now, mind you, probably 2 weeks earlier, I had stood on my desk and sang a whole song on the Harper Valley PTA, and people thought it's funny when I was 6 years old. But I, in the moment, wasn't trying to be funny. So I was like, ooh. So I went to the birthday party, and the whole birthday party, I was so sad. I was so sad that I didn't even eat the cake and ice cream. And when we got ready to go, my party favor, you go to a party and they give you a little party favor, was a Winnie the Pooh book. And it had a big scratch on it. And I knew they did it because I couldn't sing. Because I was 6 years old.
Oh.
I decided I cannot sing. I'm never going to sing again. About the time I was 12 or 13 years old, I decided that's ridiculous. I love to sing. And in my church, we didn't have any instrumental music. We sang a cappella, and you either were real good at it or real bad at it. You either had it or you didn't. And I decided that Sunday morning, I'm going to sing out to the Lord. I'm going to sing in a joyous way. I'm going to go all out. I'm going to sing, sing, sing. And sure enough, I sing out. And about 3 rows behind, my cousin Marilyn and my cousin Karen were sitting together, and they start laughing out loud, like so somebody's mother goes over and thumps them on the head. Right? Be quiet, girls. And I knew it was because they heard me sing. And y'all know sound travels forward, not backward. I heard them, they didn't hear me, but I knew, because that was 2 times singing resulted in laughter, which was not my desired response. When I went on to junior high, I had a friend named Tori. And Tori came to me and she said, we're going to try out for the choir. I was like, no way, Tori, I'm not trying out for the choir. She said, yes, we have to try out for the choir. Well, I ended up trying out for the choir because Tori's dad was the principal and my mother worked for him. So I thought, okay, I don't have a choice. I'm going to go down and try out for the choir. So I tried out for the choir and I got in the choir, but I knew I didn't get into the choir because people laugh when I sing. I got into the choir because my mom worked at the school. So for the entire time I was in junior high, I never actually sang a living word. I only lip synced. And you know what? Y'all remember those lip singers that got in all that trouble years ago? They had nothing on me. I was good. I was a performer. I was passionate. I looked like I was doing it, but no sound came out of this mouth. I finally got on to high school and I thought, I just really love to sing. I want to sing. It's in my heart to sing. And I decided, you know what? Forget it. I'm gonna get someone. I'm gonna get a singing coach. I'm gonna get someone. I'm gonna try out for the elite women's group, the Corlettes. Why? A person who'd been lip singing would try out for the Corlettes. But anyway, I'm a brave woman. I said, I'm gonna do it. And sure enough, everybody, they thought, you're gonna make it. You're good. You got stage presence. You got performance. You're doing fantastic. And I went in to try out and I looked down on the first row and who was sitting there? Andrea Schultz from first grade. Needless to say, I did not make the Corlettes. I want you to know I was 18 years old, and it wasn't until I was 50 years old that I sang out in public again. At 50, I had a one-woman show at the Ohio Theater in Cleveland, Ohio. Y'all been to that theater? It's huge. We filled that place. As a part of my bucket list, I wanted to pay tribute to my mentors. I wanted to have a one-woman show, and I wanted to sing in public. And so, sure enough, I thought, just get it over with. And I opened that show with a song. And guess what? No one laughed. Everyone applauded. And I left there thinking, girl, you could have had 50 years of making a joyful noise had you not believed you could not sing based on something that happened to you when you were 6 years old. The biggest blocker to our success are the messages that we were told and or the messages we told ourselves that probably were not based in fact and or in truth. The biggest barrier to our future are the messages that we were told or that we told ourselves that were not based in fact. Goes both ways. I've seen many a person who's told how great they are at something that they are not great at, and they cannot figure out why they're not good. When we overpraise our children for things that they're not good at, we set them up to fail instead of praising them for the things that they really are good at, praising them for their persistence, praising them for their trying, praising them for their work. So the messages are the barrier. And retelling our own story to ourselves can give us a life of joy, a life of opportunities. So when you look at your barriers, real and perceived, think about that a minute. What's the story you're telling yourself about your own ability? Are you telling yourself you're too old? Are you telling yourself you're too young? Are you telling yourself you're not quite smart enough? Think about that for a minute. Here are some myths. In your real barriers, you may have said, I don't have time. Almost all of us have more time than we know. Last week in my class, I had asked my class to take an assessment that would tell them about their values, their interests, their talents, their aptitudes. It would help them on the journey to figure out their strengths. And they had signed up for this class voluntarily. And they were going to commit at least 4 hours to being in these conversations like this with me. And I said, there's only one thing you must do. You must take your assessment and you must get 1 hour of coaching. They didn't have to pay for it. And they didn't do it. 3 whole hours worth of work. And somebody started to tell me about how busy she was with her children. Somebody else started to say something. I said, wait a minute. Don't tell me someone on this call did not watch 3 hours of Netflix in the last week. hysterical laughter. People were out of their minds because I had called them out. I was like, did you watch 3 hours of Fox or NBC? Newscaster after, look at y'all grin now. You're like, yes, I'm always got that on, right? It's just the same story told by different people hour after hour, right? One time, be done. Think how much time you get back. Time is a great myth. We have a lot more time. We don't use our time for the things that matter most. In my work with women, and I have mostly had 70 or 80% women working for me in my companies or on my staffs based on the nature of the work I do. And they come to me and say, oh, Denise, I have too much to do. I need to get something off of my plate. And I always say, absolutely. First, you have to do this. You have to take a week, and from 7 in the morning to 7 at night for at least a week, better if you do 2, write everything down you do, everything. I fix the kids' breakfast. I, put the laundry in the machine. Write it all down. I do my job. What are the tasks you do each hour? Go back in. We're going to color code it. I make them sit down on my table. I say, okay, circle everything that is something you cannot not do. You have to feed your children. Okay, that's a definite. All right, let's do those. Now I want you to circle everything you're doing that you believe someone else needs you to do. 30% of the work that those women had on their list for their job was work that no one cared about, no one wanted them to do. It did not matter. I was the boss. I could say, why are you doing that? Well, 5 years ago when we started this project, I'm like, that's 5 years ago already. Don't do that anymore. That's a waste of your time. I asked them, how much time are you spending on a project to make it perfect? Perfection is the enemy of greatness, and it's the robber of time. Good enough is often good enough. So we'd go through and we'd cross that off. Then I'd say, let's look at anything you did for someone else where your help was nice to have, but not really required as a good team member. Like it was nice to have. Like, Maria asked you to help, but she didn't really need you to help, or you volunteered to help, but meanwhile, you didn't get done your thing. We went by and checked that off. There was another 20% of women helping where they didn't need to have helped, and not helping wouldn't have made anything worse. By the time we would get done, we would find usually at least 30 to 40% of hours that woman could bring back in her life and reprioritize.
I believe that.
And it's one of the things that's a myth. So barrier, time. Go back in and do your homework, ladies. Do your homework. Don't do it in your brain. Like write it down, look at it, color code it, and say, wait a minute. Let me get this stuff off this. Let me change this out. No money. I got no money to do this thing. I need to start with this. I need to get to school, or I need to get some training, or I need to, buy some supplies. I just shared with you at the beginning, there are more resources available for women who want to start businesses than ever before. There is more money for education for women than ever before. The likelihood isn't that the barrier is you have no money. The barrier is you don't know where the money is and how to get it.
I agree.
And so we have resources in the college who can help you, whether you're working with Ursuline or not. We have resources in the Institute to say, hey, here's where you can go in the community, whether you go here or not, whether you go somewhere else. If you need this, here's a resource you can do. You get in a network of women who know, so you can find out, and you tell people, how do you do this? You ask other people, right? Because someone knows. Someone knows something you need to know, or someone you need to know. They do. You just haven't asked. You got to put it out there. The third is that belief one. Do I have that belief in myself? How do I overcome it? You overcome it by first saying it. This is this crazy thing I believe about myself. I'm going to write it down. Now, what evidence do I have that this is true? None. Or maybe there's this one thing. Okay, that's an imperfection in me. What can I do about it? Is it enough that it's going to keep me from doing the next thing? So we examine it so that we can destroy it, move it on. And finally, I don't have the know-how. So Selena, I don't have the know-how to do Excel, which drives my team incredibly crazy. It drives them nuts. I'm terrible at it, right? So know-how, if I needed to know how to do Excel, I either have to find Selena to do it for me, or I have to have Selena teach me. Because if Excel is between me and my goals, then I have to be responsible for finding a way to learn that and or get someone to help me with it. So the next piece that we want to talk about is our gaps. Gaps are in the knowledge and skill to do what you want to do. Woman the other day said, I don't know how to put my plan together. I said, great. There are dozens of resources for how to put your business plan together. Somebody else said, I have no idea how to use social media marketing, which I believe the way to get the word out about what I do is to use social media marketing. I'm like, great. Let's identify all the resources where you can learn about social media marketing. You have to identify where your gap of knowledge is so that you can close the gap. And if you can't learn it, who do you know who can learn it, who can work with you to get it done? There are some things that for some of us, we're going to try to learn, but we're not going to get it well enough. And it's going to be the difference between getting from A to B to C to all the way to Z. And so we have to find someone to collaborate with to get that piece done. So what's your learning gap? Is it something you can learn? Or is it something you need to get someone to work with you on? So identify maybe your gaps, what you might need to know. Put that on your list. Okay. And then, as I just said, it takes a village. No person ever gets to where they want to go all by themselves. All by themselves. They just don't. But one of the things we're learning in the Institute by having these conversations with women is that if you put it out there, someone's going to help you. In every section of every course that I've been doing on people working on this, whether it's a webinar, whether it's the course series, etc., somebody will say, I need to know this. I need to know how. Does anyone know? And I stay silent until everybody in the class has thought about whether they could help that person. And once they identify that there's somebody in the class who can help them, then I might pile on and say, here's 2 more resources, or here's another thing you could do, right? But what I want to prove to women is this, is that you need something. It is likely that someone sitting right next to you right this minute in this virtual world knows something about what you're looking to do. But you've got to put your hand up. You've got to say, hey, right here, I need it. And one of the ways you figure out how to get connected to people is to try to get yourself with other women who are striving and thriving, other women who are wanting to do new things, other women who are trying to pivot. You got to look at your list and say, who am I hanging with? The people who are hanging or the people who are making things happen for themselves, right? So it takes a village. I want you to be aware of people at the college, and we will send this out to you after this, I believe. So we'll send it, but there are 3 people just at the college who will do nothing but help you figure out what you need to do next. They're part of the Institute. It's a service we provide. Nobody gets charged for this service. Julie Jones, Brooke, Sharon, they're available to you. You can call and not talk to them about anything that you're trying to think. And those women will then plug you into a network of other women like myself who are either volunteering or leading to support the Institute for the intent of helping women move. Someone the other day needed to know how they could get into connection with a political leader because it was part of their plan that they had identified. And sure enough, the request came in, and an hour later, 3 people knew how to put her right into that place, right? So we know that a network can help you get there, right? Some other resources I want you to be aware of. If this is helpful to you, you may be interested in a longer course about how to really work on getting empowered for the gig economy. That starts in February 22nd. It may launch a couple weeks later, depending on the classes mix. If you're looking for leadership to move your career up, there's a fabulous course being taught by my good friend Gina Messina called The Power of You: Emotional Intelligence, Leadership Skills, Influence, Persuasion. Fantastic. If you don't know how to do financial stuff, or you don't know how to do data analytics, but you're in a team and you feel like you're missing a key competency that would help you grow your career, look at the essentials, the functional skill sets. But if you go to the website, every single month, there will be free workshops, paid workshops, courses, micro-credentials, masters, that we're trying to design to help you move to the next level. So check us out. If it's not here, we're going to tell you where to do it. One of the women in my class the other day identified through the class that she really should be a coder. We don't do that here. So we've already set her up with other people to help her do that. So we're at step 4, barriers and gaps. Step 5, create a plan. How many, by show of hands, have ever created a SMART goal? Raise your hand. Yeah? So let me tell you a SMART goal. So there was a study of Yale graduates, and they looked at these, they looked at the graduates, excuse me, I said the wrong institution. I believe they were Harvard graduates. They looked at the graduates, and the graduates all started with the same ability to succeed. They graduated with resources. They graduated with connections. They graduated with you know, an elite leg up, an elite leg up. What they found on their longitudinal study is that at the end of their career, the people who had actually met and or exceeded their expectations of their goals that they had when they graduated from college was a very small percentage who actually made it to what they had envisioned as that young person. And the difference between those who had and those who had not was those who had written goals. Written goals. So a SMART goal is a goal that says, what do I want to achieve exactly? Not in the abstract. I want to help people is abstract. I want to support people who have children with Alzheimer's is more exact. I want to help people who have children with Alzheimer's find space in their day for their mental health is very exact. Okay? Track the progress. How am I going to know what my action is in that goal? So I have a goal. My goal is my big step. And then my next step is to say, what am I going to do? I'm going to interview 100 people. I'm going to interview 10 people who have children with Alzheimer's. And I'm going to ask them what it is that would help them that would most help them take a mental health break. So my goal is to interview them. I'm going to do 10 of them. Is it appropriate for you? Yes, 10 is reasonable for you because you're working. Is it meaningful to the bigger vision of your helping people with yes. When will it be achieved? I'm going to do it in 2 weeks. Now, what people do is they put 1 and 2 down, but they never get to 5. They do 1 and they do 3, 4, but they don't do 2, 5. If you don't do 2 and 5, the likelihood is not there that you're going to get it done. So I want you to take a minute and I want you to think about this goal because I'm going to have you add it to a first step in just a minute. The last piece, and the last 2 I want to do together is that it's not enough to have the goal, but you got to take action. One of my favorite quotes in the world is this first one. If you want your dreams to come true, wake up already.
True.
Right? Listen, you have to take action. You have to say, I'm going to take the first step towards my own future, you know? And so I want you to think based on what we've been talking about here today, if you had to make a SMART goal, so let's go back and look at our SMART goal. If you could make a SMART goal right now, right this minute, about what you're going to do. I'm going to help you fill in number 5 by sundown tomorrow to help yourself based on something you learned today. What would your goal be? What action would you take? Let's make it a goal. Everybody write down one thing that you would specifically do to take a first step that you can measure and that is realistic and achievable by you by sundown tomorrow. What would it be? Everybody write one down. You got it? So I want one person to share it at least before we get off the call. One.
For real?
Yeah, Kathy.
I want to take that assessment test that you
Okay.
said that you gave to see what I'm actually good at and what I am. Please take this with a grain of salt. I've always been told by my father that you're dumb, you're stupid, you won't be able to do anything. But on the flip side, I'm divorced. I have 3 amazing children. I have a job. I have a home with a mortgage that it's a brick. It's some people dream of it. How is that? I've got it.
Yeah.
I do it all by myself.
Yeah.
But I want to further. I want to find out who I am. I don't know who I am. Your question of who you are. I'm a mom. I'm a sister. I take care. I am that. Like my love language is taking care of you, taking care
Yeah.
of whatever you ask. It is done 110%.
So
Do I
Kathy,
love my job? I go to work. It pays the bills. It pays my mortgage. It pays my bills. But I want more.
good. And we can have more. Kathy, we can have more. Everybody on this call, we can have more. Right?
Sorry.
No, that's what I'm yay for you, Kathy. Yay that you could say that, call this out. Kathy, I want you to contact Julie Jones at the college. I'm going to put her information back up in just a second. You write it down. At the end of the call, I'll put it back. You call her and you tell Julie Jones you'd like to take the assessment. Okay. You can.
Thank you.
You can do it, right?
Okay.
She'll hook you up. That's your person. Okay.
Thank you.
And then she'll help you have someone coach you so you know what it means. And you can do that. You can send her an email by Sunday night, and I bet you sometime in Monday she will have gotten back to you so you can take action and you can do it immediately. Right?
Thank you.
So that's your SMART goal. Right?
Yes.
I want to know what I am good at. So I'm going to take an assessment. I'm going to contact Julie Jones so that I may take the assessment, and I'm going to do that before sundown tomorrow night. Okay.
Yes.
You've taken action. Anybody else? Anything to say?
So I'm going to research Excel classes and the cost so that I can come up with a cost structure for myself.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Perfect. Selena, how specifically will you research it? Are you going to go on the internet? Are you going to look at
Come here. Come here, baby.
colleges?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
Think about, how am I going to research it? How am I
Okay.
going to research it? I'm going to go on the internet and I'm going to look at free resources. I'm going to look at colleges. I'm going to look at online groups like Udemy or other things like that, right? Okay, good. Perfect. That's the first step, right? Excellent. Okay. Anybody else have anything to add?
Well, this is Teresa. I can call 10 people that I know, at least 10 who have children and adults with autism who might need some help.
Yeah. So Teresa, step one for you would be to think about 2 questions that you would ask them, maybe 3,
Mhm.
that would allow them to share openly with you where they need help, okay?
Gotcha.
So,
So I'm thinking I would just flat out ask them, what can I do to help you get some respite for maybe an hour or 2? 2 hours would be my max. 2 hours a day or every other day. What can I do to help you just get your everyday, things done, routine things done?
okay. So you begin to look at that and say, all right, how am I going to put that together and think about how I want to then do that? Like this is your little pilot to figure out what it is. Then what
Mhm.
you're going to find is, all right, you know what? I do this best for people. So now I'm going to advertise to moms of kids with Alzheimer's. You need some help with this? Call me. I do this. And here's my fee for service. If you want this to be your gig, if you want this to be your service, be your service. If you want this to be your gig, drive some money into your life, then set that up. All right. But again, there are people here who can help you think it through as you go. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Welcome. Anybody else? I want to give everybody a moment.
I will say I would like to open my own school eventually from an Afrocentric perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I need to do next is start researching schools that may already be established, talking to other finding other resources that in which like I can start a business plan and those kinds of things in a way to get things moving.
So Marla, that's excellent. So I want you to break it down to the simplest step on that. Okay. I want your first step to be, I'm going to go on the internet and explore Afrocentric schools and you got to decide, are you doing this for preschool, elementary, middle school, high school? I want to look at the first step to see what's out there.
Okay.
And I'm going to do my first search by this time. That will then cause you to do your second search and your third search, right? So take one thing. So ladies, you see how you all will talk about it and then I come back and say, no, just do one thing over here. Because if you say I'm going to do all these things, you end up doing none. Generally, that's our problem as people, as human beings. Just do one thing by Sunday night at sunset. I'm going to do one thing by Sunday night at sunset. Just think if you did that every day in your life, what would happen to you? I'm going to do one thing every day by sunset. So Marla, that's fantastic. And then there are some very interesting people that once you start on that path who are doing some of those charter schools and how they did it and what they're doing, that certainly with the network that we have in education that we could actually, help you meet some other people.
Okay.
Talk to them.
Thank you.
There's a young woman in admissions and she is destined. She's destined to start her own school and she works for the college. And that's her long-term plan, start her own school. So just as we're talking, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I must say about October, there was another woman, I have to go back and get her from my list in my class who wanted to do that. The 3 of y'all might need to get together.
You might be
You
right.
don't have to go by yourself, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Again, I'll put these people's names here, ladies, so that you can contact them. Is there anybody else in there that has anything they want to ask or say?
Thank you.
I just like to wrap up by telling y'all that you know that at the heart of it is that you know that you can, and that you know that a happier life, a more purposeful life, it is available to all of us. The people who get it are the ones who boldly step out with courage to grab it. And it won't be smooth. It won't happen the way you think. But if you boldly step out from a place of knowledge about yourself and what people need, you're going to be able to do that more successfully. The college is here to help you. Please go to the Institute for Women, Wellness and Work. Tell all the women you know to plug into the Women, Wellness and Work, whether they're working, whether they're raising their children, whether they've been laid off, whatever. We want to help women not be part of the statistics. We don't want women to fall behind during this crazy time. So by chance or by choice, the Institute's here. So thank you very much for your time on a Saturday morning. My best to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this.
You're welcome. It was my absolute privilege and joy.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Joe, I can't believe I've seen women I know.
No, I saw your name and it was very exciting. The topic and your presentation of such.
Oh my goodness. Amy, Joe, and I worked together a million moons ago, ladies.
Yes.
A million moons ago. So I feel like a little reunion here.
Yes, very exciting.
So this
Thank
is
you. This is very, very helpful.
Yeah. Well, reach out to me. Keep me in the loop. Ladies, all of you are welcome to reach out to me, please. Good to see you. All right. Have a great day.
Thanks.